All right, we're back here on SportsLine, getting you set for the 19th running of the St. Jude Rock and Roll Marathon and Half Marathon this Saturday right here in Nashville. Steve Layman here with you tonight, joined with Keats McGonigale, the Senior Regional Director for Ironman, in charge of the race this weekend, and Rick Zortman, who will participate as a St. Jude hero in this weekend's race. So many great stories out there. He certainly has one of them. He alluded to a little bit of it in the last segment. We'll get to much more on that as we go along here throughout the course of the night. But Keats, I want to get into just some of the particulars of this because it is a full weekend. Yep. A lot of people in Nashville know, and the people who aren't in the running community mainly know just because it closes a bunch of roads down and makes things tricky at times. But there's a lot going on, and there's really something for everybody to get involved if they want to.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a serious runner to come participate. You know, it starts tomorrow. We've got the 1 mile race. You know, on Saturday we've got the 5K, which is 3.1 miles, half marathon, marathon, and then the weekend culminates on Sunday, one of my favorite events, with our kids race. So it's truly accessible to everybody, all kinds of ages. You don't have to be a serious runner to come out and participate. So
let's start with tomorrow night and the 1 mile run. I mean, I could even do the 1 mile run. What do they have to do? If somebody's sitting at home right now and thinking that, well, I wasn't doing the marathon or the half marathon, but 1 mile, I can do the 1 mile. Can they just show up and be a part of it? Yeah, so tomorrow, come down to the Music City Center. We open our Expo and fitness area at noon. So between noon and about 5:30, we'll take registrations for the 1 mile there at the Music City Center. Anybody who's running the race on Saturday, that's where if you already registered, you come down and pick up your packets between noon and 7 tomorrow, and then again on Friday. Noon to 7 both days for people coming in? For Saturday. If you're picking up your packet, you're already registered. Friday is going to be from 10 to 7. 10 to 7. Okay. Tomorrow is noon to 7, and then Friday is 10 to 7. And there's some other cool things too at that sort of welcome center in the Music City Center, just for runners and people who are interested in fitness and things. There's a lot going on there besides just picking up your information and packets. Yeah, exactly. Part of the whole weekend experience is the Health and Fitness Expo. You know, we've got 90+ vendors there displaying all kinds of different goods. We've got all kinds of different experiences there. We're debuting a new booth that we're calling our Experience Triathlon booth. So anybody who's interested in coming down and seeing what's going on, it's open to the public. Just come down to the Music City Center and enjoy yourself for the afternoon. On Saturday morning, obviously, there's a lot going on. I mean, you think about the marathon, you have the half marathon, which is what a ton of the runners do, and obviously you got a 5K that goes along with it too. So first off, every year the numbers seem to kind of balloon on it. There's roughly 30,000 registered, I think, again? Correct, yeah. Yeah, we're anticipating about 30,000 participants across the entire portfolio of events, and you know, from my perspective, being new to Nashville here, it's pretty cool because about 60% of those participants are from outside the state of Tennessee. Right. So they're coming in to enjoy the city, enjoy the time here, and we get to showcase that for everybody that's joining us. So it's pretty cool. Good for the hotels, bars, and restaurants after the race is over anyway. As you get set on Saturday morning, of that 30,000 number, how many are actually in the races on Saturday? So Saturday's events be, you know, right about 27, 28,000. Okay. So I mean, that is the vast majority of the runners coming in that will be on the roads on Saturday morning. And give the people at home a little sense of the time, because you got 3 different races of lengths there. What time do people need to show up, and what time does the start gun go off for each one? Yeah, so the starting for the 5K is at 6:45 in the morning. The start for the half marathon and marathon is at 7:15, and you know, those start areas are downtown. Then they run and view all the highlights of the different areas of Nashville, and then eventually finish over at Nissan Stadium. So it's a pretty cool way to see the whole city. And the best part of all, it is not going to be 92 degrees this year. Yeah. Because last year was miserable. I was out there for a lot of it and just sweat. And so I know people really struggled to get through. This year, it sounds like we're going to be in the low 70s, probably 50 degrees-ish when they shoot that gun off, and we're going to get people going. So it should be great.
Yep, we're anticipating mid-40s at the start. You know, most of the runners will be done before it hits 70 degrees, so it's like ideal, perfect running weather. So much better than what we had last year.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I know a lot of people have been praying for that weather after what we had last year. When you look at the course, that to me is always one of the really intriguing things about the race here in Nashville, is this city has so many unique characteristics, whether it's running down Broadway by all the honky-tonks, or up through Music Row and out by Belmont and into some of the neighborhoods like 12 South, or through the baseball park, which I thought was great last year as an addition, then over through East Nashville and finishing at the stadium. Has anything changed this year? Are there any adjustments to the courses?
You know, we've tweaked a few things here and there. You know, a different block here, a different block there. For the most part, it stays mostly the same. Still hits all the highlights that you just mentioned. You know, one of the things that I'm personally looking forward to is seeing all of the spectators that come out and line the streets along Music Row. The runners are going through there twice, both directions, and it just becomes a great atmosphere for people, not only if they're running, but if they're just out enjoying the day, cheering on the runners. You know, the runners notice that. They get pumped up by the vibe of everybody cheering them on, helps them to go faster. So that, along with the music, makes it for a great experience.
Certainly going to be a lot of fun as we get out there. Now, Rick, you're from Iowa, right?
Yes.
So how did you get roped into coming to Nashville? Obviously, the cause is behind it, but what made Nashville the ideal place for you to do it?
So one of my friends basically had seen my story and said, you know, St. Jude's has a race going on in late April, and I was like, okay, well, I've got 2 races. I think I can do a 3rd race, and I'll just take vacation and we'll just do back-to-back-to-back races. And so I'm thankful for Sonia for helping rope me into this. And then she was like, you also have to fundraise for St. Jude. Well, for me, that really wasn't a problem. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. And my original goal was 500, and we got that right away. So I'm like, what's the next goal? And she goes, well, 3,000. And I'm like, I think I can do it. I'm not sure, but I think I'll put my heart to it, and I can do that. And so with the story that kind of goes with it, I pretty much sketched names, and what I used is I basically said, I'm going to sketch names. You can donate as much as you want. If you have a name you want to donate, or a name you want to, you know, propose to me for me to run, I'll run that name. And so we ended up hitting, as of, I do believe, yesterday, I was at 37:20. And so it was over the goal, and I was ecstatic, because I was like, we actually did it. And so to be able to run for St. Jude is just, means a lot, just to be able to run. And then with what you said, with all the spectators and everything out there giving us extra juice to run, indeed, that's so true, because when you hear the crowd support and the crowd cheer, it just gives you more energy to get going faster.
Absolutely. Where did you run the 2 previous races in the last couple weeks?
Okay, so April 14th, I ran Rock the Parkway in Kansas City. And then last weekend, I ran the Garmin Half Marathon in Olathe, Kansas.
Wow. Well, you're all set. Now you get the hills right here in Nashville, which makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But you're running for a purpose for sure. And that is because, obviously, the cause of St. Jude's and fighting children's cancer and things like that are near and dear to your heart, because of the story of your son, Armstrong, who passed away back in 2009. Take me through that process of, you know, being a parent and the helpless feeling of watching something so dreadful happen to your own.
Okay, so I was actually stationed overseas in 2008, and I got a phone call from my wife at the time, and she was frantic, and I didn't know really what she was saying. And so I had to wait about 30 minutes for her to calm down. She said, Armstrong's had a seizure. And at that point, I was like, okay, now what? They're like, well, you need to get home, and then we'll figure it out. Well, then I took emergency leave home, came home, got home Monday when he was in surgery for the first time. And the doctor came out and said, we don't know what kind of cancer it is, but your son has stage 4 glioblastoma cancer. As a parent, you're just stunned, because you don't know really what cancer will do to your son. And so as the weeks and months went on, the steroids impacted the way he walked, the way he talked, and it took away from him. And so when he passed away on April 9th of 2009 from his second seizure, he had ballooned up to almost 65 pounds. And he was 31 back in October when I'd seen him last time on FaceTime. And so when he passed away, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I decided I was going to pick up running because that's what he liked to do. And so I did my first half marathon in 2010, and then back-to-back marathons in 2011, 2012. And I kind of just was like, okay, I'm going to run here and there. And then in 2015, I kind of used letters to propose to my wife, my current wife. And so I spelled out, "Will you marry me?" one letter at a time. And of course she said yes. And so we fast forwarded to 2017 because I'm now in a bunch of different running groups, and I've posted my routes and all this and that on to hold myself accountable. And so somebody had commented that my routes were boring. And I was like, okay, how do I take that? Do I take that? Okay, so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna start.
They're not boring anymore.
No,
Let me say that.
no, they're not boring anymore. So I started sketching names and positive words and phrases. And so come September 1st of last year, Armstrong was the first sketch that I did for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
And there we have it, right
it's
there
right
on
there.
the screen.
So
pretty awesome.
it's pretty much, I started at the green dot and worked my way all the way to the red dot. And that took me about 5 miles or so. And as you can tell, there are 3 letters that have diagonal lines in them. And so what I do with those is I basically run, like when you see the first R, you see that I can run the P, and then I'll pause my app, and then I'll walk down to where the line comes together, and then I'll unpause it, and then it'll draw the diagonal line. And then I'll do the M, the S, the T, and I'll repeat with the R, and then the O, and then the N. I run up, pause it, walk down to the bottom part of the N, restart it, and it'll draw that diagonal line.
Wow.
And then it
so
goes
you're
up.
not actually like walking through a restaurant or like somebody's backyard to get the diagonal going.
No, I've had comments where like they asked me if the Avoca Fire Department and the police department actually know I'm running through their buildings, and it's like, no, it's pretty much what I do. Pause and resume. And so
it's amazing that it works like that.
Yeah, so after I ran Armstrong's name, while I was running his name, I thought, why don't I do this for other children? And so I put it out there. I'm like, this is the month of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I want to run as many names as possible. And so day 2 came along, and I ran Ava and Tyler. And when I came back, I had well over 40 names to run.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I can possibly run 2 a day. We should be good. And so the month moved on, the names kept coming in, and with the help of 3 friends, we ended up doing 100 names in September.
Fantastic.
But when I was done with September, I still had names to do. So I'm like, okay. So I started doing names, and I started doing phrases to go along with it, because sometimes I'll wake up and be like, I'm not going to do a name, I'm going to do a phrase, whether it's for a running group or somebody fighting cancer or somebody that's just needs that word. So like I've ran words like achieve and believe and inspiration, just words in general that I can be like, hey, this word is perfect for today. And so to this day, I have ran 377 names. I actually first started in July and then hit it hard in September, and now this month I just ran 377th. I do believe yesterday I ran 3 in Memphis. So I don't know what name 400 is going to be, but like when I get there, it'll be like, okay, this will be name 400, and then we'll quest on to 500 names.
Wow. If people are out there at home, because everybody knows someone that's been afflicted with cancer at some point, but if they have a child or know a child that they would love to see you run for them, how can they get in contact with you and give you a name?
They can actually reach me in numerous ways. They can actually search Human Etch-a-Sketch on Facebook. They can go to PackerFan73 on Instagram, or they can go to runforarmstrong.com. It's all one word. And underneath, you can actually submit a name, and you can actually submit a story with the child. And I will just, I write it down, and if I've already ran it, then I'll submit it right away. But if I haven't ran it, then I'll be like, okay, it's going to take me a little time. You won't know it's coming until after I run it. And then once I run it, I will tag you and anybody else that has that name. Because that's how I got most people to see what I do, is because I'll tag people that I run for the parents and then the name of what I ran. So if I ran a Jennifer, you know, that's a common name.
Sure.
There's like 15 Jennifers, and then they see it, and then they tell their friends. And so it's easier to spread it that way than to just post it just to 2 names and then nobody sees it.
When you ask people ahead of running for this race if they wanted you to sketch a name as you ran, what was the donation fee that they needed to pony up for the run?
Well, at first I had put that it was going to be for $25 a name, where they could just donate $25 a name. And before I could even put that out there, I had people donating $50 and $100 and not even giving me a name. So it was like, okay.
That's even better.
Yeah, that's even better. I mean, and I know they know people that have cancer, but I've had people ask me, so how do you get the names with the HIPAA laws? Well, it's not the parents that reach out to me. It's friends of the parents that reach out to me, or it's stories that I see in the newspaper, or stories I see on TV. And I'm like, I'm going to run for that child, and then either I'm going to reach for the parent, or if the parent's name's listed in the newspaper, which I've actually done, I'll run that name, I'll find the parents on Facebook and be like, oh, by the way, I read your story in the newspaper. I ran your son's name today. He was my inspiration for this run today.
Wow. As you go through this whole process, obviously, for you, it started with Armstrong. That was your impetus to just get out there and start running. Just from a running standpoint, not even the names and all that, just from a running standpoint, how therapeutic was getting out there and running? Something, as you mentioned, he loved to do, he wanted to be a part of. For you to do that in his honor, how therapeutic was that for you?
For me, therapeutic in a way where I can just go out and have like a one-on-one conversation with him. And it means a lot to me because of what he used to do. He used to love to run, and there wasn't a lot that you could select from that he liked. He loved Diego, he loved Dora, he loved to run. That was pretty much about it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to watch Diego or Dora all day, every day. So I guess I'm going to run. And so my therapeutic way of just having conversation with him, of running and just going out every day. And so this year I've actually ran every single day and had a conversation with him where it's like, okay, so how are things going up there? And just waiting to see the signs that he sends me. So, you know, living in Iowa, you know, if you run outside in winter, you know, you're going to have...
That's God's country.
Yeah, I know, right? So you've got like 5 sweatshirts on, you got 3 layers of pants, you got 2 socks, you got, you know, shoes with, you know, the cleats underneath, just so you don't slip. And people kind of like look at me as like, he's running outside. Okay, I'm just going to go back inside. And so it's just therapeutic for me, just thinking of him, thinking about how he liked to run, and just keeping me in shape. And I'm just going to keep doing it for as long as I can.
And if you get enough snow, you don't even need the GPS anymore. You just run it, and it's just tracks in the snow.
Exactly. So yeah, it's fun to do because every day the route's different.
Right.
Whereas when you see people post the routes of, you know, my routes being boring, every day it's something different. It's a name here, or it's like, okay, we're going to do a word, or if it's a race, it's like, okay, I'm just going to let the music take me, and I'm just going to go.
On the rare times I run, I have 2 routes. So I'm certainly in the boring category compared to you. The thing that just struck me there is I've got 2 nieces and another one on the way, and you know, so many people have kids at home and things like that, and you just watch them growing up, and you mentioned Dora and some of the other things. Like, that's what every kid likes, and that's what they want to be into. And to see kids like Armstrong and other kids who get robbed of that opportunity and sort of that joy and freedom, and ultimately, in Armstrong's case, their life, it's just, I mean, it's just heartbreaking. And there's so many people like yourself, obviously, who've gone through it or have kids going through it right now, and it breaks your heart, and it uplifts your heart, I think, to watch people do what you're doing. right now for it.
And the thing about that is that's why I've got the public Facebook page, is because I can post the name, and any parent that I run for, they're more than welcome to put their child's picture and a story underneath that, because no child's story should ever be forgotten. And so, you know, my son, he's the reason why I run, and he's the reason why I'm doing this. He's the reason why I'm running for St. Jude. And to run the names, it's a personal thing, because I've gone through it. Now, other parents, they may go through a different type of cancer, and their kid might beat cancer. Their kid might be like, okay, he's doing well now, and then all of a sudden it takes a turn from the worst. And that's what hurts me, is that when I run a name, like I did for Ava on September 2nd, like a few weeks later, she had passed away. And so I actually went to the visitation and walked her name in the city that they were having the visitation in. And as I was walking her name, I was taking pictures of everything that was pink and purple that meant a lot to her. And so it's personal when the parents have to go through this. And it's even more personal when they've got to go through a death of a child, because no child should ever pass away from cancer.
No child should ever have to go through cancer, even if they beat it ultimately. It's that dreadful disease that unfortunately all of us have some level of a story about. Keats, when I look at this race, and the first time I covered it was 8 years ago, my first year here in Nashville, and I remember talking to several of the competitors before the race, and it was amazing, the story. So many people out of that 28,000 who will be there Saturday morning are running for something. And that day I met some soldiers who were running for fallen soldiers. We met some St. Jude heroes that day. Just so many people who have a cause out there. I imagine you've got a laundry list of people running for things this year. One, how cool is that from a racing perspective? And two, do you have any others off the top of the head in terms of really neat causes that people are running for this year?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately everybody's got a story. You know, and for us as an organization, one of the cool things is to be able to partner with St. Jude, because their mission is all about eradicating childhood cancer. You know, we don't want any more stories than we have to have about anything like this. You know, again, I've got a couple of kids, and I love supporting an organization like St. Jude's that is doing so much in terms of fundraising for the purpose of scientific research, so that families don't have to experience what we were talking about. Yes, everybody has a story, but if we can prevent those stories from becoming any more proliferate, then, you know, it's a win for us as an organization. It's a win for St. Jude. It's a win for everybody.
There's no question about that, for sure. All right, we got to take a break here. Got so caught up in those stories, we got a little bit behind. But we will come back. We'll have much more on this. We'll get you set for race day on Saturday as well. And phone lines are open, 737-7767. If you have a question for either of these guys up here, maybe you're in town getting set for the race and you want to know some of the particulars, we can do that as well. So stay tuned, much more SportsLine on the way as we get you set for the 19th running of the St. Jude Rock and Roll Music City Marathon right here in Nashville coming up this weekend. Stay tuned, more SportsLine on the way after this on News Channel 5+.